So as I was saying, thank you all for being here. You're taking a very important step to figure out the legal basics to protect a venture that you're either thinking about starting or that you have already started. So I think this information is really important, and I'm here to share all of my knowledge with you. As Toby said, there will be plenty of time for Q&A at the end, but during the course of the presentation, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and we'll get to all of them, I promise. So again, my name is Kimberley Odums. I'm a wife, a mom, and an entrepreneur. Shout out to my husband and my daughter, they're watching. So that's great. I'm a lawyer, surprise. I have over 12 years of experience. I used to work in what's called big law. So for a massive international law firm representing businesses of all sizes, particularly large household name brands like the Amazon, Ubers of the world. And through that work, I've learned a thing or two about businesses and what they need to thrive. I also work a ton with startups and have done so for a very long time. So I understand the unique challenges of entrepreneurs or people just starting out and what they might need to thrive and protect their businesses. So that is the basis of my work. I try to work with entrepreneurs at all levels and just help them in any way that I can. I'm also a business owner. I own my law firm and I also own a second business in the e-commerce space. So I have that duality of understanding not just lawyering from I sit in an office and help businesses aspect, but I also, started a business from scratch, two businesses from scratch, and had to maneuver on the other side of what it means to be a business owner. So with that, I think I have gained the information that can help all of you. I've been in your shoes, so I'm just here to help. And I'm so excited to be here tonight to help train you or present to you. So this training, this workshop is for you if you know you need a better understanding of how to legally protect your innovation or your business, and you're sick of kind of piecing random tidbits of information using Google University. Google can get you, but so far. So we're here to pull all that information together and create a space where you can ask your questions live. This training is not for you if you know everything. If you got it down, you've got a legal team, you are great. I would still ask you to stay because, you can learn a thing or two. You can always learn a thing or two. It's also not free if you're fine with hey, I'll just deal with legal stuff when it pops up. Not my thing. I try to be proactive, and I think it's a sign that you're also being proactive because you're here. So let's get started. As a lawyer, I have to give disclaimer. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. So right now, as you're sitting here in this presentation, I'm going to be sharing information with you. I don't know your business in and out, so I'm not in a position to give you tailored information. So everything you're learning tonight is information that's applicable to you, but I'm not your lawyer. So don't take what I say today and go file something and say, but Kim said. Kim's not your lawyer. So Kim is just giving you information. So let's start there. All right, so today's agenda, as we discuss, this is legal basics. So we're going to talk about a number of milestones and foundational pieces that you as a business owner need to ensure that you are doing things appropriately and don't get jammed up. So we're going to talk about entity formation, which is choosing the best entity for your venture based on what you're doing. We're also going to talk about licenses, insurance, permits, and how to operate like a true business, because that is a thing. If you're in this business space, you're playing the game, you got to play it right. We're then going to talk about contracts, building a team, and that persistent thing about independent contractors versus employees, how to distinguish that and how to not get jammed up by the Attorney General or the Department of Labor. We're also going to talk about identifying and protecting your intellectual property. If you have a business, you have IP. You just absolutely do. You just have to identify it, figure out how to protect it, and then you can monetize it. So I'm going to share some tips with you on how to do that. Sprinkled throughout the presentation, we're also going to talk about things you can do right now, tangible things you can do today to get your business on better footing legally. I'm also going to acknowledge frequently asked questions and answer those. And there will also be a Q&A session as I discussed. So before we begin, I like to frame things. I like to get a grounding of where we are. So you all have access to the chat. So right now, where are you in your business journey? Put on 1 if you have an idea, but you haven't done anything yet. 2, if you're just starting out, maybe less than a year. 3, if you've been in business, maybe 1 to 5 years. And 4, if you are established and operational and just you're doing the thing. I'm going to hit my chat so maybe I can see. Lots of 1s, some 2s, 1 and 3. That's interesting. All right, 333. Great. 2/3. Okay. I haven't seen any fours yet, so that's fine. So 1 to 3, that perfect. You're in the right spot then. All right, I'm going to exit this, and I have 2 more questions for you. So do you currently have any legal protection for your business? 1, if you have none at all. 2, if some, maybe you've gone to a legal clinic, you have a friend who's a lawyer and they told you some stuff. Or 3, you've got everything. You've got a legal team. You don't need me. You don't need to be here. You're just here to be here. So 1, none at all. 2, we've got some. Great. So I'm seeing a lot of 1s and a lot of 2s. So again, you're in the right place because, I have information that I can share with you that I think can be very helpful. And the last poll question. The last poll question here is, what's keeping you from legally protecting your business? Is it time? No time? I'm going to figure things out myself, but I have no time. I'm too busy. Is it money? I can't afford a lawyer. They're very expensive. Or again, 3, I'm all set. So we got some 2. Lawyers are expensive. It is a fact of life. So we have 2, 2, 2. Got some 1s, some 2s. Definitely understand that. All right. So again, you're in the right place. Hopefully I can share some resources with you that can help you to do the things you need to do, because cost aside, time aside, again, your business needs to grow. So you're going to need, lawyers or legal help on your side. Okay. Right. Now let's get into it. So the first section is entity formation. So what is a business entity and why do I need one? At its core, business entity, it's like this fictitious thing that the law created that allows you to conduct business, but not personally, right? You now have this thing, this distinct entity that can enter into agreements for you, that can sell things, can be sued, you have to pay taxes. It's this distinct entity that the law just kind of created. So your LLC or your corporation, and we'll get into what that is, it's viewed in the eyes of the law as a distinct person, a distinct entity that's separate and apart from you. And essentially, the reason why business entities are important and why you need one is because a properly formed business entity separates your personal assets and liabilities from those of your business. Now, what does that mean? If you are in business, it is very likely that you may get sued, for example. We live in a very litigious society. People can sue you for anything. When you have a properly formed business entity, for example, an LLC, it creates a buffer between your personal assets and the assets of the business. So if, for example, there's a trip and fall at your location, let's say you have a food truck and someone gets food poisoning and they're in the hospital for 5 days and they want to sue you for your medical bills. If you have an LLC, for example, the only thing that they can sue you for are the assets of the business. So if the business doesn't have any money, they can't really bypass that and then say, hey, well, I want your house, I want your car, I need access to your personal assets, and you have to use your personal finances to pay me. A properly formed legal entity creates that buffer to where individuals, creditors, individuals in lawsuits cannot go after your personal assets, and they can only go after the assets of that business. So it's very important to, 1, understand the different types of business entities, 2, select one that is appropriate for what you're doing, and then 3, do what you need to do to separate and operate differently and separately from the business so that you can maintain that liability. The type of entity, maintain that limited liability. The type of entity you choose also impacts a lot of things. If you're a nonprofit, for example, there's certain restrictions against the type of money that you can take from individuals or how you spend your money, for example. Whereas if you are an LLC, you can freely take investment funds from anyone, really, and then use it how you see fit. The type of entity also impacts the types of taxes you have to pay and the amounts of taxes you have to pay. It also impacts your business ownership, who can own your business. An LLC, for example, you can have foreign investors and foreign ownership, whereas a nonprofit or other types, that might not be the case. So the type of entity you choose also impacts, what you can do and how you can move. Generally speaking, there are 2 types of business entities, you have the limited liability, and then you have the non-limited liability. So we've already started talking about LLCs. Let's visit that again. So it's very, very common. LLC Twitter is a thing. Usually people, when they're starting out, it's like, well, my cousin told me if I want to be legit, I need an LLC. So they go and they form an LLC, not really understanding why they're doing it, but just thinking that they have to do it, which is not always true. And I'll give an example of why that's not always true. But LLC is very common. It's very easy to file one. You don't necessarily need a lawyer to file one for you. You can go onto usually your state's Secretary of the State website, and there's, the form that you can fill out. Take some time to read it, review it, and you're all set. You pay your fee and you're usually all set. So it's a fairly easy type of business entity to form. And again, you have a limitation of liability. So if something happens within your business, individuals cannot come after your personal assets, your cars, your homes, your personal bank account, your spouse's bank accounts are protected. And you're also protected in the face of bankruptcy and other things like that. S Corps and C Corps, those are LLCs, but you take a step further and file a special tax designation form with the IRS. So for example, I have an LLC that's an S Corp, right? I have a limited liability company. And then because there would be a tax savings for me, I've spoken with my accountant and I filed a designation to be an S Corp. And that allows profits and some losses to pass through. That's a tax question. I'm not a tax attorney, so I'm not going to get in depth into it. But there is a frame of thought that depending on your type of business, there's a huge tax savings in becoming an S Corp. You pay less taxes. So that's something to discuss with your accountant. C Corp, that's usually larger corporations. And then we've also talked about nonprofits, right? So those are limited liability companies. Your liability is limited. So what happens if you don't file an LLC, but you're out here operating a business? Because it happens all the time. I have an idea. I want to sell buttons. I'm not going to pay $520 to form an LLC. I'm just going to start selling buttons on Etsy. That happens all the time. So what happens is if you're operating as a business, you are selling things, you are performing services for a fee, you are automatically defaulted as being either a sole proprietor or a partnership. Now, the difference here is a sole proprietor is, again, I'm going to throw up a website. I'm going to start, or not even a website. I might just sell through my Instagram. I'm going to sell these things. If something were to happen and the IRS or the government or whoever were to look at you and say, what type of business are you? You haven't filed anything, so you'd be deemed a sole proprietorship. Now, if you speak to a tax attorney, they may tell you that's probably not the best way to go about things because you don't get as much as of a tax benefit for being a sole proprietor as you might with an LLC. However, I do want to share, not everyone needs an LLC, especially when they're starting out. And some attorneys will not tell you that. They'll just push you towards an LLC for a variety of reasons. But there are instances where you have an idea, you want to try it out. It's very low risk, right? Because remember, the purpose of forming an LLC, a limited liability company, is to limit your liability. If I'm selling buttons, there's very low risk that I'm going to get sued, right? Like if I'm selling stickers, and stickers are a booming business, by the way, if I'm selling stickers to planners and people, who like stickers, the risk of me being sued is very, very low. So maybe I want to remain a sole proprietor. I don't want to have to pay annual LLC filing fees and other things like that. And I just want to try it out to see if I even like the business before I pour a bunch of money into it. The factors there to consider, it's a low risk business and I'm testing it out. So, in that example, maybe being a sole proprietor for a while is fine. A partnership is basically there are a ton of partnerships out there. It's not generally recognized, but, if you and your friend say, hey, we want to go into business together, you shake on it, you don't have any paperwork, or maybe you do have something written between you, but you haven't filed anything with your state, you're generally looked at as a partnership. And again, if you're selling stickers, very low liability. But if you're doing something that has more of a risk component, let's say you have a food truck, let's say you are doing something in the pharmaceutical space, let's say you're selling energy drinks, something people consume and can, be harmed and, want to come after you, you might want to consider formally filing an LLC so that you have some protections in place. So let's talk about LLC because most people do eventually gravitate towards filing an LLC, and you can be a single person with an LLC, a single member LLC, you can do it. So it's a liability. I have to drive it home because it's important for that reason. The liability is limited to the assets in the business, not your personal assets. So creditors can't reach your kids' college funds. If you're sued, they're stuck with what's in the business bank accounts. However, and I cannot stress this enough, you must operate as a true business. There's a legal concept called piercing the corporate veil. I'm going to get into what that means in the next slide, but you must operate as a true business. One thing that individuals do is they say, well, I'll just go get an LLC and then maybe I'll get some business credit and then I'll, maybe sell some things, and the money I get, I'm going to go buy a house. I'm going to pay daycare. I'm going to swipe my business credit card to get groceries. I'm going to buy that G-Wagon because LLC Instagram told me I can buy a G-Wagon. You're doing all these things that an outsider looking in, that's not how business operates, right? The CEO of Starbucks is not using profits from the local Starbucks to build their new pool. It just would not happen. So you as an individual in an LLC also have to be very, very careful about how you move, how you're using the money, how you're tracking your expenses, what your documentation looks like, because it matters. And I'll tell you why again in the next slide. So no commingling of funds. You want to keep your funds, your personal funds, the things you get from your job, a different hustle, side hustle, whatever it is, separate from your business assets and business expenses. You want to be able to track it, and you want to be able to have a system where you can go in and say, okay, this is what I've made. I'm renting out, I'm renting a house, right? These are all the profits that I've made from, rental income, et cetera. You want to be able to track that clearly and cleanly, and you want to treat the business as separate from yourself. Rounding it out, I just want to say again, the LLC is a very flexible model. It's less rigorous as far as paperwork. You're just, filing in Massachusetts, where I am, a one-page application. You submit it, you pay the fee, and you're done. It's permitted in all states. It allows investors outside the US. So that's something you want to think about. And then again, you have that flexibility in the tax election status, which is the S Corp versus C Corp and things of that nature. I would advise you that if you want to get more information about that, the best place to start is your local Secretary of State website, where you can get information. And there, sometimes they'll have tutorials and little videos specifically telling you what it is that you need to do. So important tips for LLC, and again, piercing the corporate veil. So let's say you did file and you now have an LLC. You get paid, you do some services or you sell some goods and you get paid $1,000, whatever it is. And now you take that credit card and you're like, I'm hungry. Let me go buy some food. Buy some food. Oh, I want to go to the movies. Swipe your business credit card, go to the movies. I'll write it off. Oh, I got daycare. Swiping that. Oh, got to pick the kids up. Kids sports. Need to swipe that. You're using the business income, the business credit, the business what have you, as if it's your personal piggy bank. That happens a lot. It happens a lot. And I'm encouraging you right now to be very, very mindful about what it is you spend business income and business credit cards and business cash on. Because let's say that's how you're operating. You're just going with the flow. Let's say something happens in your business, and it can be either that you got sued. I'll talk about being sued a lot because it is reality. You either get sued, you get a lawsuit, or the IRS simply just wants to audit you because they're doing that more frequently now. If you've watched the news in the past couple months, if you make more than $600 in your business or your side hustle, you are a target for being audited by the IRS. So just mentioning that. So let's say something happens, you either get sued or there's an audit. They're going to demand, and they can legally require you to turn over your business account information, all of your business records, right? Because it's not your personal records, it's a business record. And remember, the business is its own entity, it's a separate thing. So they can demand that, they can circumvent you and go directly to your bank and ask for that. And what can happen, let's say you get sued and there's a judgment, a $5,000 judgment, and you're like, oop, there's only $2 in the business bank account, so that's all you get, tough luck. Well, no, they're gonna look at the business bank account, and if they see enough to show that there is no separation between you and your business, your personal assets are now in play, right? If they see that you're not paying yourself from the business, but instead you're using the business account as if it's your personal account, they're going to say, and that there's an argument that no, sure, you filed an LLC, but you're not a separate entity. You're trying to hide behind the shield of liability, but this is basically you doing business. This is not a company, so you might as well be a sole proprietor. Everything that you have is commingled. Your personal funds with your home funds, with your kids' funds, with your spouse's funds, it's all commingled. So you're truly not operating as a business. And because of that, we're no longer bound to just go after the $2 that's in your business bank account. We can now go into your personal bank account and your savings, and we want that. So it's very, very important that you treat your business separately, that you keep good records. If you are going to pull money from your business, do that and pay yourself. You can do an owner's draw. You can do these different things to actually extract the money because you did work for it. It is yours in a sense, but pay yourself in a way that you can track it and you can look back and say, yes, that's when I pulled money to pay myself. Pull the money and then go spend it on your kids. Pull the money and then go spend it wherever. But do not have a business record that looks like it's your personal piggy bank because it never looks good. So create separate bank accounts, operate as a business. When you have contracts, and we'll talk about contracts shortly, sign them on behalf of the business and not you as an individual. And that's as simple as saying, Kimberley Odums, CEO of the Odums Law Group, or, CFO of, or owner, whatever of the, but, you're signing things in a way that it's clear later on, because you always have to think of, will I be able to prove this, right? So later on, so it's clear later on that this is not just you entering into a contract with the bank. This is, on behalf of your company. You want to track all income and expenses. I've seen people use a simple spreadsheet, especially if you're just starting out. Perhaps you don't have $50 a month for QuickBooks. That adds up. If you're just starting out, perhaps you haven't made a profit yet. I've seen people use Google spreadsheets. It is free, it is easy, and it's free. You can't beat that, right? So as you're starting up, there's a savings there. There's a savings component. You don't, just have to throw money after, sophisticated software. Get appropriate insurance. I mentioned the food truck example. Food trucks are great. We love them. We love to eat. But with that type of business model, you're not going to need, car insurance because you have an operable vehicle that's moving. You'll also need, perhaps clearances and different things from the health department. You may just need general insurance. I know I sleep well at night knowing that, if something happens in my business, I can just call my insurer and be like, I got a complaint. Please assign me an attorney. And, they get to it. When you have certain insurance, that's all you would have to do. You get a claim, you get a complaint, you call your insurer and you say, I have a claim. They assign you an attorney. The attorney handles all the filings, all the communications and correspondence between the court. You're there as an individual to sign off and say, okay, yes, that's what happened. No, that's not happened. Yes, I like the strategy. No, I don't like the strategy. But you have that protection. And I think a lot of folks, depending on the space that you're in, and if you're in a space that is just ripe for litigation, if you are in a space, if you're in a food space, if you're in a pharmaceutical space, if you are in a space where folks can be injured, like let's say you set up a paintball facility, you want to make sure that you have that coverage in case something happens. And understanding your policy exceptions, sometimes you'll get insurance and it'll say we cover all of these things, but not these things. You want to know that because if one of these things that, is not covered happens, you don't want to think you're covered and, be engaging in these things. Like you either want to say, no, I need it covered. What does that require to get that coverage? And have that discussion. Document and keep good files. I cannot stress that enough. And when you think about documenting things, a simple email. If you text message, I know a lot of people text message, take a screenshot and email it to yourself immediately. Then you have that record. Emails and text messages, DMs, all those things are, helpful when you're trying to piece together or potentially defend yourself. Again, file business taxes and prepare for the IRS. You are a business. You say you want to be a business. You got to operate like a business. And with that, be prepared for, certain government entities to maybe target you. Right now, as I mentioned, just Google what's happening. It used to be that if you made, I believe it was $20,000 or more with your side hustle, getting money through Venmo or Etsy or what have you, that would be the trigger when you're up to like $20,000. But they've lowered it. So if you make 600 more, if they can track via Venmo or whatever it is that you've made $600 or more in profits, they can target you. And target maybe is a harsh word, but they are looking to see what it is that you're doing. And when the IRS comes knocking, I didn't know is not a good answer. So you want to be prepared. So with that, we're going to jump quickly into insurance permits and operating like a business. Most of this is going to be a recap of what I just said, because I kind of got ahead of myself. So do your research once you're starting out. Understand You always want to research. You always want to have information. You always want to lead with the most information available to you. So Google is your friend. Figure out what you need for the type of business that you are engaged in. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're likely not the first person to have had this type of business. So there will be information out there, whether it's on your Secretary of State website, different state website and agencies that provide information that tell you what it is you need to do. Understand the state and local requirements. You may need a license to do a particular thing that, so research that. Me, for example, I'm a lawyer. I have a license to practice law. So when I went to start my law firm, I was redirected based on my information. I didn't have to fill out the standard LLC. I had a special one that I had to fill out that required even more information. So had I not known that and I filled out the regular LLC, they would have rejected it. So, understand what your licenses are. And if if you're a nurse, doctor, anything that's licensed, you're probably going to have just a few additional steps. So make sure you're prepared for that. In some places, if you have a DBA, right? So DBA is doing business as, so let's say you are Pete's Coconuts and Grapes LLC, but you're doing business as Pete's Treats. If you are advertising as Pete's Treats, your invoices say Pete's Treats, that's essentially a DBA. And some places require you to complete a separate form to identify yourself as a DBA. Whereas if you don't, and let's say the Attorney General or someone files a complaint against you and they see that, they can fine you for that thing, right? So zoning restrictions. Let's say you want to create, again, a paintball something, and you're doing it out of your home, but your home is not zoned for that type of activity. Eventually it gets out, your business is booming, and now you have someone knocking at your door saying you cannot operate here because of zoning restrictions. So now you have to uproot and find something that's properly zoned. For a lot of home-based businesses, that's not the case, but I'm just giving you examples of things that you need to think about. If you're doing, for example, again, food trucks, I don't know why that popped into my mind, but a food truck, you generally cannot have a food truck in a residential area. You have to be in a space where food trucks are permitted to be. So you need to just think about these things. Because if you want to start a food truck, but the nearest designated food truck location is 2 hours away, that can impact what it is that you do. Reporting requirements for LLCs, for example, there's an annual requirement where you have to refile certain things to basically say, hey, still doing business, and you have to pay them another fee and then wait again. I know Massachusetts is probably one of the most costly states. Here, it's $500 to file an LLC plus another $20 if you want to do it online. I know some states are like $30. So figure out what it is in your state and then go from there. Federal requirements, you can get an EIN. It is free $99. Go on the IRS website. It takes 5 minutes. Don't pay anyone to do it for you unless you're just like, I'm so busy, someone handle it, which is fine. But just understand that it is free. People generally use their EINs in conjunction with their LLC paperwork to go to a bank and create that business bank account. They usually require documentation like that. So just things to consider. So again, I like to give in the moment, real time tips, I guess. So right now, I want you to leave here thinking like, what are the legal requirements for starting and operating my specific business? Like, do I even know? If I don't know, right now is the time to start doing that research. Do I have all required business permits and licenses? Let me go to the Secretary of State website and see. Maybe my state is quirky and requires something that I'm not even thinking about. You want to know that. Do I need to register with any state agencies? You might. Does the Department of Labor in your state require you to file something saying that you're operating? Maybe. Do you need a sales permit? Maybe. Do I need insurance? And if so, what type? Again, this is going to be dependent on the type of business you're doing. And then just know that the specific licensing, zoning, and permit requirements, they vary state to state and sometimes even town to town. So what your cousin across town is doing might not be what you need to do in your town. And again, can't say this more, act like a business owner. Separate yourself from the business. You want to keep that liability. Establish a business bank account. If you need to pull money, go ahead and pull it. I would rather you pull it than to swipe your business credit card for daycare. And then now it looks like, well, this is commingling. You're mixing business and personal. What's going on here? A business, Google would not do that. Starbucks would not do that. Think of yourself in the way that these businesses operate, because you're held to the same standard. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out. You are a business just like they're a business, and they wouldn't do it, so you don't do it. Earnings belong to the business, not you, even though, yes, you are the one doing the hard work, but you pull that money out. It keeps your home and personal wealth safe, and don't undercapitalize. That's when I meant like, okay, well, let me dive into this a bit. Earlier in my example, I said, there's just $2 in the bank account, the business bank account, so they can't come after me for anything. That's a sign to many attorneys, and that's something they can use as an argument that you're not actually a business, or you're not operating as a business would. I don't know why I'm saying Starbucks. Starbucks would never keep $100 in their business operating account. They wouldn't, because in order for them to operate, it costs more than $100. So if you are getting paid for services and you're immediately pulling everything out, that is something, along with other factors, that a lawyer could look and say, this is not a real business, because what are you operating on? Air? There's no money here. So are you truly a business? How are you paying for, even if you made buttons, how are you paying for the buttons? How are you paying for the supplies to make the buttons? Like, you have to have some money in the business, because that's how businesses generally work. So you don't want to pierce that corporate veil. And again, in some states, community property, your spouse's assets can now come into play if you are being fast and loose with your LLC money and then something happens. So be very mindful. And again, this was the piece on insurance. Make sure you find a broker that's specific. Like if you're a food truck, find someone who's actually worked with a food truck company before, because they're going to know what you need, what you don't need, and, negotiate. I know when you're thinking about business, you think about lawyers, insurers, accountants, it's a money suck. It's sucking money from your business that you could otherwise have, but you need them. No business has gotten to be a behemoth international business without the help of lawyers, accountants, et cetera. And maybe you're like, well, I don't want to be that big. You're still going to need the legal information, the accounting information, like this knowledge, you're still going to need it. So get it. Contracts. All right. So this is an interesting topic. I've spoken to a lot of business owners in my time, and I used to work be a litigator, which basically meant people came to me when things went south and they were either being sued or there was a threat of being sued. And I was the one that was either, litigating in court or, everything that leads up to that, for lack of a better phrase. And there are so many times where you ask someone, well, where's the contract? And they're like, well, we didn't do one. We had a conversation and we were all good. Things are all good until they're not. And I don't care who it is. And it may feel like, I don't want to offend this person by asking them to sign this contract. You can feel that way. And then you're going on a hope and a prayer, fingers crossed that things don't go wrong. We've seen so many times that things can go wrong. One of my favorite shows is Judge Judy. I watch her most days at 4. And she handles a lot of contract cases. And it's usually a cousin, a mom, and whoever. It's usually someone very, very close who had a relationship. And it's like, I just thought we were good. Things are good until they're not. So you can operate and say, hey, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with whatever comes. But I don't think it's unreasonable to say, okay, we've agreed on this. Let me write up a quick email just detailing what it is that we've agreed on. And then we can sign it. Or let me print something up. Let me write it on a napkin. Just something is better than nothing. I would definitely advise you to have a template contract that you can use over and over. But if you don't have that, get something in writing, right? So a contract is essentially a promise or a set of promises that are enforceable in court. They can be oral or they can be written, but written is preferred for obvious reasons. It's easier to prove what was actually said. It avoids miscommunication. Miscommunication is a fact of life. I can say one thing and you hear something else, and that's just what it is. When that comes into business, that can mean massive amounts of dollars and cents trying to figure it out later by suing each other, right? So you don't want to have that miscommunication. You want to have a document that we can point to and say, no, I agreed to sell you these widgets for $5 each. And now you're telling me I said it was $3. And that person would say, no, you told me it was $3. We have the contract that we can then point to and be done with it. Whereas if this was just an oral conversation, you're not going to need a third party, which is a judge or a court, to step in. And what they say happened is what's going to happen. You don't want third parties in your business dealings. You want to have something that you can point to and say, this is what we agreed to, and that's it. So you want to have that. Contracts, some contracts, though, are legally required to be in writing. Some real estate transactions, and then other things of the like. So just make it a good practice to get into the habit of using contracts or some kind of writing. Watch your words, right? The other reason why oral contracts, I wouldn't recommend them is because, again, they can be misunderstood. You do not want misunderstandings in business deals. You have enough to think about, enough to worry about, enough to plan and strategize for, that you don't want to have to take time out to argue with someone about a business deal that you could have just gotten in writing. Again, makes things clear. Even if you're doing things for free sometimes or for value, you still want to get something in writing. There's a tax savings in donating things, for example, donating your time, what have you. So you just want to get things in writing. And it's also good for tracking and just documenting things in your business. So 3 types of agreements that you all might need in your business at the moment. So I thought about, and just based on the polls earlier, a lot of you are just starting out or, less than 5 years of business. So right now, the types of business, and I would say templates, because you're going to be using these over and over and over. Service agreements or sales contract. If you're a consultant, if you offer a service, you're going to want to have the parameters of that relationship defined somewhere, right? Some people might say, no, well, I just want to do my business. They're going to pay me. It's going to be fine. Okay. Well, what's your refund policy? What if they say they don't think you perform the services? How do you figure that out if nothing's in writing? If all you said is, I'm going to do this thing, you're going to pay me. And now they're like, no, you didn't do it right. What do you point to say, well, no, I did exactly what was discussed and you have to pay me? Nothing, because you're operating on basically a handshake, which this is not back in the day where maybe that meant something. Right now, you want it in writing, right? Sales contract, same thing. Let's say you are, a baker, and you're baking 5 dozen cupcakes and you're spending a lot of time doing that. You go to deliver it and they're like, nah, don't need it. What do you have to rely on to say, no, we had a deal. You were supposed to pay me regardless of, whether you changed your mind. If you're just operating verbally, you don't have much. So you should definitely have a sales agreement or a service agreement that you use. Independent contractor agreement. This is another big one. When folks are starting out, you're not in a position to hire a full team, right? You might not, most folks don't get their first employee until about year 5. So from now until then, you're probably using independent contractors. What are independent contractors? You'll have your photographers, your web developers, your graphic design artists, a consultant that you might use, these different people who come in and piecemeal, they help you. Independent contractor laws, and we'll get into that, they can shut your business down. Let's just say that. If you misclassify someone, you can be looking at fines and being potentially shut down. So you want to have an agreement that says, hey, I need you to come help me with this distinct thing, this unique thing. This is what I'm going to pay you. And I just need it done. The end. You're not an employee. So don't come back asking for benefits, time off, vacation pay, none of that. You're doing this thing for this amount of money. The end. So you want to have that if you are someone or you're an industry, maybe, you use software developers or whoever it is, whatever it is that you use. If you have people coming in and out and doing services for you, a lot of times they'll have their own agreement, but you just need something. Confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements. If you are working in a space where maybe you have this grand idea and it is great, but you need to talk to people, right? You need to talk to potential investors. You need to talk to people because you need their buy-in. You can have, and you should have those folks signing an NDA. Because what you don't want to happen is for you to share your information with them. They ask you every question, they get all the details, and then they go off and do it themselves. Because what are you then going to point to say, well, no, this is my idea? They might say they never spoke to you a day in their life. And now you've given up all the information. So you want to have things in place. I'm speaking with innovators here, folks with business, folks. I saw Size City, post something today about their incoming cohort, and it was a lot of AI and just different things that, it's very valuable. And you don't want someone to rip your idea off before you're even off the ground. So you do want to use confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements in your dealings. Bonus, if you have a website, terms of use are things that you put on your website to basically dictate to your visitors how it is that they can use the information on your website. You can disclaim and say, hey, this is not medical information, this is not health information. That's where you will put those things. Privacy policy, you're also federally required to have this. If you collect, let's say, personally identifiable information from folks. So their names, their credit card information, their addresses. If you're doing all these things, you're collecting this information, you are federally required to have a privacy policy on your website. And I have a resource for you that can help you get all of this together. So again, self-audit. I like to do things in real time. You should be thinking right now, what contracts do I have and do I use in my business? Do I have them? Do I have contracts? If you have them, where did I get them? Did I just pull something off of Google? If you did, do you actually understand what that Google contract says? And if you do, yes. Again, I'm going to say what some people don't say. There are some really good contracts on Google. There are people, for whatever reason, they don't put it behind a paywall, and you can get like a really good contract if you know what you're looking for and if you know what it says. I've seen a lot of times, and I've actually had clients where they come to me and they want to sue somebody. And I'm like, all right, well, let's look at the contract. They have a contract, and the contract has nothing to do with their business. It's just the wrong contract. And also it has terms in there that is not favorable to them. And it's like, well, this says that they don't have to give you the money back. This is your paper. You gave them this contract to sign. Why are you giving out something that you don't understand that doesn't help you? Think about it. Does it protect me in the ways that I need to? Another point there is, if you go to small claims court, if you go and you get sued and you're saying, no, they owe me, this is the contract. They refer to it as your papers. These are your papers. This is your contract. This is what you provided to someone else. So I, as a judge, I'm going to judge you more harshly because you wrote this. And then you might say, no, I didn't write it. I found it online. Well, you found it online and you decided to use it in this business dealing. So I'm going to be more harsh on you because you were in control of that situation. You presented this contract. So you really want to be clear and really want to know what it is in a contract that you're using. All right, building a team, independent contractors versus employees. This is a quick section, but I did want to mention it because, again, a lot of folks will be using independent contractors until they build up the momentum and revenue to, bring on full-time employees. Document. You want to have, an independent contractor agreement. It doesn't have to be, and none of these contracts, let's be clear, contracts don't have to be 30 pages. They simply do not. They just have to be clear and get to the point and include language that covers these standard things, like what you do if there's a dispute, how much are you being paid, what are the deliverables, what is my refund policy, if any? What happens if I'm dissatisfied with your work? How do we resolve that? So a contract simply needs to have these pieces. It does not have to be 50 pages long, which is what can be overwhelming to some people, right? I don't even know this says these 50 pages back. So why would I give it to someone else type of thinking? It just has to get to the point and include what needs to be included. Use offer letters or independent contractor agreements. Some people might have VAs, right? Virtual assistants. And you can have this is an offer letter. I'm offering to pay you $5 an hour, 10 hours a week. You have it in writing now. This VA cannot then say, well, no, they owe me back pay for 12 months because I worked with them for 13 years. And you're like, I just hired you last week. Crazy is real. It's out here. So protect yourself. And beware of worker misclassification. I'll speak on that in a moment. So the question of the moment, independent contractors versus employee, what's the difference? Why does it matter? So an employee, many of us are employees, right? You have a job. And let's think about what that means to be an employee. Your employer likely, I hope, gives you benefits. You have certain leave time, sick leave, parental leave, things like that. You get paid overtime, or maybe you're salaried, you're not overtime, but you're paid salary, right? You might have a supervisor and a boss who directs you and controls you and says, hey, work starts at 9, ends at 5. You can have an hour lunch at 12. They have these protocols in place. You generally work on site. Right now, we're in the era of COVID, so folks are remote. However, your boss can still say you need to log in at 9. We have a meeting at 9:15, right? So they're controlling you even though you're far away. And your work is central to the business. Right? You work for a marketing agency. You're going to do something related to marketing, and you're paid for your time work. On the flip side, a good example that I want to take with you for an independent contractor is a plumber. Think about a plumber. Let's say you own a business or you're at home, what have you. Something's wrong with your piping, your plumbing. You don't know what to do, right? Your business is not in the business of plumbing. So you don't know what to do. You find Instagram, you find whatever, you call up, you get a referral for a plumber. You call them. That plumber says, all right, I can come out tomorrow. You say, fine. They come out. You point them to where the issue is. They go in there, they poke around, they knock around. They tell you what the issue is. They tell you how much it's going to cost. They tell you I can come back and start tomorrow. You can agree or disagree or to their fee, but their fee is generally their fee. They come back tomorrow. They go in your bathroom or your kitchen or what have you. They do what they need to do. They may bring an apprentice, an assistant, whoever. They bring their own tools, their own supplies. They might charge you for, the labor and supplies, but they bring that all with them. You don't have to provide that. They do the work and then they send you an invoice. You pay it and then you're done. You don't call that plumber back. You might call them back next month if you have another issue, right? But what are the differences here? That plumber is not owed any benefits, any lead time, any overtime. They gave you a fee for what it was, and that's what you pay. You have less to no control over that plumber, right? Because you don't know what you're doing. You're not in there with them saying, okay, now open that up, now flip that, now twist that. Like, no, they have the skill set, they have the expertise, they come in and they do it. Plumbers generally work off site. Like they're not your employee, they work wherever they are. They come in, they're their own entity. I mentioned they have their own equipment. They probably have their own insurance and their own setup. And their service is not central to your business. Again, you're not in the business of being a plumber. You just have a need and this individual is, filling that need. And they're paid by the project. They gave you their invoice. They told you what it was and you can pay it or not pay it. You can engage them or not engage them. So I think a plumber example is a good one to think of. So some examples of independent contractors are photographers, right? Graphic artists, marketing individuals sometimes. Like let's say you need marketing materials for your product or your service. You're going to tell them what you need. They send you maybe some drafts. You decide what you like, what you don't like, and then they send you the final product. Photographers, you may go to their studio, they take photos of you, they send you, the edits, you figure out which one you like, and then that's it. Consultants, right? Sometimes you'll have a consultant come in, and it could be a long-term consultant, but they're a consultant. You tell them what they need. I need a consultant auditing our financials. They'll get the information, they'll crunch the numbers, and they'll come back to you with a final, report or review. So it's very, very important that you understand the difference. Now, why should we care? Why should we care? The reason we care, I'll start here. A lot of individuals, because it is a cost savings, will say, hey, you're an independent contractor, but they will actually treat that individual as though they're an employee. So you're going to be like, okay, you're a contractor. You're not my employee, you're a contractor, but I need you here from 9 to 5. I need you to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to give you different work throughout the day. This is when we have lunch at 12 to 12:30. You're going to be doing what my other employee does because, such and such is out and I want you to be doing that. That is inappropriate. And I know it happens. I know it's the cost savings to say, I'm just going to give you this bit of money. But again, things are good until they're not. And usually the cases that I see is a disgruntled individual who's saying, I've been working and I'm not getting paid. And, they're telling me I need to be there 9 to 5. I got to get in my car, drive through the traffic. I got gas money I'm spending. I got to figure out what to do with my kids. It's all of that. And they're disgruntled. And then they go to the Attorney General's office or they go to the Department of Labor and say, this person, they owe me. They owe me. I don't know what, but they owe me. So now you're getting a letter from the Department of Labor, the IRS, whoever, saying, what is we need this person's personnel file. And you're like, what personnel file? We need this person's records. If you didn't keep good records, that's not good for you, one. But two, if you did keep records and it shows that they, are an independent contractor, but you treat them as an employee, you're setting yourself up to be fined. You're setting yourself up to potentially be shut down. If you have licenses, those can be impacted also. And then you're setting yourself up to have to pay the individual back pay, back benefits, back overtime, all these things, simply because you did not treat them as you should have treated them. So be very, very careful about misclassification. This is a general overview. There are literal tests that you can find on your state's website that will say, this is what an independent contractor is. If you do any of these things wrong, they're not an independent contractor and they're by default an employee. So you have to be very, very careful. And again, for many of you, this is going to happen way later. No, it can happen now if you're, hiring someone and you need them because, the work needs to be done, but you're not classifying them properly. You're not compensating them properly either. So best practices here would be when you hire independent contractors, hire them for a specific job, specific gig. Think plumber. I need you to do this. This is the deliverables. This is what I need from your work, and just get it to me. They should be temporary. Now you can have like a long-term temp or a long-term contractor, but the longer someone is working with you in the same way, the same capacity, the more it might look as though, they're an employee. They usually carry their own insurance, as we said. They can hire assistants. They can do what they want because they're seen as an independent entity that is not your employee. And you generally pay them for the job, not hourly salary or things like that. Keep good records. Let me check the time because I want to be mindful. All right. Identifying and protecting IP. This is our last section. And it's one of my favorites, obviously, because I am at heart a trademark lawyer. So I love IP. So generally, when people think about intellectual property, they'll conflate copyrights, trademarks, patents, and trade secrets, which make up intellectual property. So we're going to go through and talk about the distinct types of intellectual property. All right, trademarks, my favorite. So trademarks are a source identifier. They are a unique, heavy emphasis on the unique symbol, word, phrase, or design that's used to identify a business, service, or its products, right? When you think Nike, you're already thinking the swoosh. You're thinking sports apparel. You're thinking sports. When you think Starbucks, you're thinking that dark green. You can probably envision in your mind what the facility looks like. You're thinking the cup. You're thinking coffee. No one's going to say Starbucks. Is that company that makes pens? You're not thinking that. You're immediately thinking coffee because it is a identifier of the source. As a business owner, you can protect your business name, logan, and slogan, right? So words like Apple and Google, names like Fenty, Coco Chanel, slogans, just do it. You immediately think Nike, finger licking good, KFC, America runs on Dunkin'. You know that's Dunkin' Donuts. You know it's not some other thing. The Nike swoosh and the distinctive color of the Nike swoosh. Mercedes. There's also a component called trade dress, the glass Coca-Cola bottle. That's trademark. Or you can do a combination of any of those things. So sometimes you'll see, for example, the Nike swoosh with just do it underneath. It's like doubling up on the trademarks. So as a business owner, you are pouring time, energy, resources, efforts into this business dealing. Make sure that you own your name. Please lock it down. A few slides ahead, but maybe I'll just get to it right now. Very recently, we saw what can happen when a up-and-coming business, or not an up-and-coming business, we see what can happen when a large corporation thinks they want to rebrand or thinks they want to expand, and they think they like a name, and they will bulldoze and take the name from a smaller company who's probably just thinking, oh, I'm just a small business. No one's looking at me, like no one cares. We saw this with Meta, Facebook, that is now Meta. We now know, and there was a media storm about another company, I think a few other companies, who had been using the name Meta for a very long time, but did not trademark it, did not think ever in a million years that Facebook would decide they want the name and would take it from them. So be very, very mindful. If you thought of something and you think it's a good idea and you like the name, someone else also might like the name. And you want to protect it so that they don't snatch it from right under you. So Forbes, this is just an article talking about trademarks. Trademarks are usually one of the most valuable components of a business. Google right now has, one of the most valuable trademarks in the world. Think about like Nike, for example. We're using Nike. If Nike's entire, factories and everything were to burn to the ground tomorrow, I'm not saying or wishing that on them, but let's say that happened and their stock, everything was just completely destroyed. They would still be able to go out and get a loan. They would still be able to have someone say, okay, we trust in you, we value you, off of their name, because we all know that Nike apparel is going to sell. We all know that Nike is a huge company that can make massive profits. So the name alone will allow Nike to protect itself and to reemerge from the flames of, burnt inventory. So that's just one tidbit. So for trademarks, you file an application with the USPTO. That's where you get the protection. The protection can last essentially forever, so long as you enforce your trademark, meaning you are monitoring. You don't let anything slide. If someone is using your name or something a little too close to it, you send them a cease and desist, you shut it down immediately. You also have to maintain that by filing certain documents with the USPTO and just make sure that your name and your trademarks aren't diluted. I would highly encourage you to consult an attorney to clear your trademark. I'll say this, there are many online services that can say, hey, we're going to file your trademark. I will encourage you to scroll to the very bottom, very, very, very bottom of their page, and you will likely see that they are not law firms. They are document filing entities. Now, what that means is you go to them and you're like, I want to trademark this. And they'll say, okay, great. Tell us exactly what you want to trademark. They type it in and they file it. There's no counseling involved. There's no them telling you, no, you're probably not going to get this registered because it's too, you're saying number one best nail salon. You're not going to get that registered for a variety of reasons. It's generic. It's not unique. It's none of those things. They're not going to tell you that because they can't. They're not law firms. They cannot counsel you. They cannot give you that guidance. So what ends up happening is they file your application. And right now, trademark applications take about a year plus to file. It's just the backlog due to COVID and other things. So here you are, you filed your trademark application and you're pouring more into your business. You got branding now. You have all these things. You have like a huge poster board of your face made with your name. And a year from now, you get a notice from the trademark office saying, no, you can't register this. So what do you do now? Or worse yet, someone sends you a cease and desist because they've been tipped off by your filing that you're using this name that's too close to theirs. They wait, and a year later, they send you a cease and desist saying, take it down, take it all down. Take your website down, rebrand, stop your manufacturing because I own this name. This is how. Hey, you don't want to take your website down? I can send a DCMA notice to, whoever and get it taken down from you. Matter of fact, I want your Facebook and your Instagram pages as well. Change the name or I'm taking it off. And that isn't, I don't say that to scare you. I say that because that is a fact. That is a reality. That is what happens when you attempt to infringe on someone's name and you don't own a trademark. They will take it from you. I noted here Meta versus Meta. Recently, Mattel and their Rap Snacks, right? They had a barbecue chips that they had featuring Nicki Minaj. And there was a lawsuit that's since been settled. But if you attempt to, and I tried immediately before this, Google Rap Snacks barbecue chips, you probably won't see the images online anymore. The issue there was Mattel, which owns Barbie, and they are very aggressive about policing their trademark. So if you try to do anything Barbie related, because they know how profitable it is to, slap the name Barbie on anything, they'll come after you. They'll pull all your stuff down, right? So Rap Snacks, which they make chips and things, they had Nicki Minaj, and Nicki Minaj, calls herself a Barbie, and that thing, they used barbecue, which I thought was very clever. The pink lettering from the Barbie, it was just very clear. And Mattel didn't like that. They said, take it down. And it's down now. So I can only imagine what happened. But, people police their trademarks because they see the value in it. And they know, you as a copycat, you can make money off of my goodwill, off of my hard work by trying to say that you're associated to me in some way. So police your trademarks. Again, what can business owners trademark? Your name, your logo, your service name, your tagline, if you have a podcast, what's down here, course name. There's a lot of intellectual property that you have within your business. You can also, and I know I said something about having a unique name, but this is one example of, registered trademarks, because when you register a trademark, you register it within a class, right? And there are a number of classes. Let's say you have apparel. I think that's class 27. Let's say you write books. That's a different class. So you'd figure out what class you're in, and then you'd see if there's anyone within that class that has the same or similar name. Anything that could be confusing to consumers, the USPTO is going to say no. But for example, you can have the same name, but they're in such different industries that the USPTO says, okay, we'll register this. You're never going to think Dove soap is Dove chocolate. They're just different. You're never going to go to book a ticket and end up on the Delta Faucet Company website and think you're booking a ticket, right? So they're very distinct. So you'd want to talk to an attorney to figure out, what it is you do. Applications, there are also two different types, in use and intent to use. I say future use. If you are actively using your name and you're like, I want to lock it down, that's one application you file. But what happens for a lot of businesses, and this is how you can actually get competitive information, is you can look at the USPTO website, because folks will file things to get protection for things you're going to do later, right? So I can say, I intend to use this name for socks or for whatever. And then you'll file the application. It locks your place in line. And then you can, manufacture, you can test whatever. And by the time that year has passed or what have you, you now own the name, you'll get it registered. And then you've already started doing this, your business operations. So there is a way to file an application for a name and, things that you're not yet using, but you want to eventually get into. Again, I mentioned it's one of the most valuable assets. It distinguishes you from your competition. It can be licensed, sold, or gifted, right? So licensing is huge. That's how a lot of companies who own trademarks make money. You can see, branding deals or branding collaborations where, I'm going to allow you to use, Mickey Mouse on your shirts, and Disney would never. But, well, they might. And you have to pay me to be able to do that, but you're going to make money because now you're affiliated with Disney, and kids love Disney. They'll see a Disney shirt that you're producing and they'll buy it off of the strength of the Disney mark. Again, prevents confusion. It stops copycats, and it's a source identifier. Quick tips, and this is kind of like the entrepreneur's dilemma, right? So I'm thinking of a business name. I want someone to hear the business name or see it and know what I do. Like, I don't want them to have to guess. So I might say, Malcolm's Beer and whatever. You can't own the name beer, right? Another Malcolm down the street might also want to create a beer establishment. So what's to stop him from doing that? It's just super generic. So you have to think of things like Starbucks, which meant nothing before they slapped it on coffee. Now we all know what Starbucks is. Google, a made up word. Dubsado is a system that I use. And the founder said that when their child was learning how to speak, they couldn't say a word and they kept saying Dubsado. So they named their company Dubsado. Excellent trademark because it's a made up word. It's unique. And when you hear Dubsado, you think of this company. Words that are mashed together, right? So Starbucks, Star Money. What was it? Podcast. Other words that are just, well, no, podcast is a bad example in that case, but I'm trying to think of right now words that are like mashups, and I can't think of one, but it'll come to me. Spanx, completely made up, right? So you want to go for something that's unique. So it's the dilemma of trying to figure out, I want something that, maybe I'm in an industry where I want someone to know immediately what it is I do, but I also want a name that I can register. So what do I do? Once you have a trademark, you have federal protection. You have 100% ownership of your trademark. I put an asterisk there because other people can, again, the dove versus dove, the delta versus delta, there can be some similarities so long as they're not in the same class. You have the ability to use a circle R. If you do not have a registered trademark, technically you're not supposed to use a circle R. So, once you have the trademark, though, you can. You have the ability to monetize it and sell it. Like it's something that is worth money. It's valuable. And then, it distinguishes you, of course. Quickly, the R that you use that once it's trademarked. The TM is something you can use now. So let's say, and a lot of you, if a lot of folks, you have a unique name, you can just put the TM next to it. Doesn't mean a whole lot, but it does put the world on notice that it is your trademark. You're intending to use it in business. And it's something that you may potentially register. Service SM, you don't see that a lot. And then C is for copyright. And that takes us into the next segment. So copyrights, they protect original artistic works like books, movie scripts, songs, lyrics, artwork, etc. You file your application with the U.S. Library of Congress. Your protection is generally for the life of the creator plus 7 years. You see this a lot where a movie script comes out and then someone's like, I wrote that. Like I shared this with a producer and they didn't take it. They said it was crap, but then they went and they produced it. How do you prove that meeting happened? Because the producer might say, I've never met this person a day in my life. So you have an automatic copyright once you take what's in your mind and write it down, you reduce it to paper. But if you never do anything with that, you never publish it anywhere, no one ever sees it, and then something happens, a copyright filed with the U.S. Library of Congress is a federal notation that, yes, you wrote this back in 1987 or whatever, and you filed it with us. So now this movie that's coming out in 2022 that is identical to your script, you have a way of showing that, it belongs to you. We see this with song lyrics a lot. People get sued for copyright infringement. One of my really good shows, Abbott Elementary, they just recently had a copyright claim. Somebody saying, this is my exact script. So, filing a copyright, even though you have an automatic one, the moment you write it down, you want to think of proof. Like, how do I prove that this is mine? Patents are very expensive, but they're amazing. So patents protect innovation, inventions, processes, machines. You can get a design patent for, design or image of a product. There's also utility and plant patents. Famous ones include the light bulb, the telephone, the computer, the microwave oven. These are things that were not previously existing that someone thought of and was able to create. They're extremely complex. Patent law is very complex, so I would not recommend anyone try to do it on their own. If you're going to spend the money, definitely get an attorney because patents are extremely valuable, extremely valuable. Imagine if you invented the light bulb, or no, imagine if you invented the telephone. We live on our phones these days. Like whoever held that original patent, I can't think of the name in the moment, but everyone would have to come to you and would have to pay you in order to replicate that and do that. So patents, just, we all have great ideas. So, if there are patentable, consult an attorney. Trade secrets. Trade secrets are company secrets, right? Confidential information, things that are not generally known to the public. So they're your methods, your unique processes, financial information. If you're into software, you design the software for PayPal or what have you, like very important, and they're trade secrets. You as an individual or you as the company, you need to take measures to make sure that you secure that information and that it doesn't leak to the public. So some examples is like the Coca-Cola formula. We've had people try to reverse engineer it, but even if it tastes the same, you'd never know. You can't say this is Coke because that formula is literally locked in a vault. KFC's 7 herbs and spices, there are millions of herbs. We could imagine if we wanted to, what, combination of 7 herbs they use, but literally only a few employees know the recipe and all of them are bound to confidentiality agreements and non-disclosure agreements and different things that keep them quiet about it. So you have to take steps if you, depending on the type of work you're doing, if you have this unique process that just streamlines something and makes it super easy, and it's confidential, it's secret, you protect that via a trade secret. All right, so tips for your intellectual property. You want to take steps, for example, if you're thinking about trademark, lock down and fully own your name, your slogan, etc. For logos, keep in mind, if you have a graphic designer or someone else create a logo for you and they pay them money, they give you your digital assets, your logo, you still do not own that logo, technically. You need to have them sign an assignment of rights or something that basically says, yes, I created it, but I'm giving you 100% ownership of it. There is usually a 1-page document that's a few paragraphs long that I give to my clients to say, hey, I know you just got that really nice graphic done. Give this to your graphic designer and have them sign it. And now you fully own it. The same with photographers. We hear all the time how, a celebrity is getting sued because they put up a picture of themselves on their social media. And you would think, how does that happen? It's because you do not own the photograph, even though you are in it. The photographer owns the photograph, which is why, Getty and all these other companies, you can buy that image that the photographer took from you for a fee. And it sounds crazy, but that's just what it is, right? So graphic artists, photographers, other people who, you work with, make sure that you are getting all the ownership rights from those documents, from those assets. Branding right now, even if you don't have a website up and you have a great name, lock it down. Go to, namecheap.com, GoDaddy, whichever. Get, it's like $8. Sometimes it's like $1 to get the domain, lock it down. And then go across all social media, get it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that, because as you're building, you want to have access to that. And you want to beware of squatters. There are people who will literally see your business and say, that's nice. And they'll go and buy up the domain. They'll get all the social media. And then when you finally get around to saying, okay, let me get this information, they're going to say, all right, well, pay me for this, right? They've done nothing but basically see what you're doing and got ahead of you. So they moved before you did. And now you're going to owe them in order to get it. I used to work somewhere where they had, it was a very old company and I don't want to give away too much. Basically, they had a domain, a website, and then a corporation that was major came along years and years later, and they're like, we want it. So they had to pay this company a lot of money to get it, because what was happening is people would go online to search for this company and it would redirect to, this place where I worked. And that's not good for business for this huge company. So they're like, no, we want that domain. And they paid and they got it. So, you also want to be vigilant. If you see someone using your name and you own it and it's your trademark, you send them a cease and desist once you have a registered trademark. If you don't have a registered trademark, there's really nothing you can do, but maybe, fake threaten them, but that you have no teeth. Once you have a registered trademark, you can send a cease and desist, and you can get it shut down. You can get their Instagram, Facebook, all that pulled down. SOPs, which are standing operating procedures within your company. You want to have policies, and this comes later, like, what employees can do, or even what contractors can do. Like, don't hold yourself out to say that you're a representative of my business. You can have that right in your independent contractor agreement, right? So there we are. Document. If you take nothing else away from this, just keep good records, screenshots, quick email notes to yourself, like, hey, the 2,000 that I took from the business, I took it on, just things that you can always rely on if you ever have to justify something that you're doing in your business. And lastly, because I am a trademark lawyer, just understand that you don't own your brand name until you trademark it. So if you have like a unique name, again, make sure that you take steps to trademark it. And I think I mentioned this before, but one thing you can do today doesn't have a lot of authority, but it at least puts people on notice that you're the owner, you're claiming rights to this mark. And, a lot of times, sometimes people see that and they're like, okay, let me not wall out. Let me not try to take this person's thing. Who knows? Frequently asked questions about trademarks. If my business name is registered with the state, do I still need a trademark? Yes, you do. Trademarks, federal trademarks are above state trademarks, right? The states don't talk to each other, which is why you may have a Pete's Treats in Massachusetts and another Pete's Treats in Texas. The states don't talk to each other. So you can file an LLC with your state. And so long as there's not another company within your state with that same name, you can get it, right? So if there was already a Pete's Treat in Massachusetts and somebody also wanted to file Pete's Treats again in Massachusetts, the state would say no. But the states don't talk to each other. So that person could just move across straight line to Connecticut and file it there, and it'll be accepted. Federal is above that. So once you file federally, can use that name for those services or those goods. So it's a step above whatever you're doing, at the state level. So do I need a lawyer to file my trademark? Can I just do it myself? What about those online services that advertise cheap trademarks? You get what you pay for. That's a fact of life. Sometimes you can just go online and it works amazingly. It works smoothly. And kudos to that. But if I were to ask you right now, if you know how to prosecute a trademark application, if you know how to respond to an office action, if you know what a 2D and a 2F refusal are, and you think I'm speaking German and you didn't understand anything that I just said, it's probably a good sign that you should not be filing your own trademark, because those are standard questions. Okay, when's the best time to file my trademark? Yesterday. If you are working and you're building, you're putting forth effort to build this business, you want to lock down the name as soon as possible. And again, remember I told you, you can do a future intent to use application where you're like, okay, we're building. We're not there yet, but we know we want to use this name. So you file now, the time's going to pass anyway. So you want to secure your spot in line so that anyone who comes after you and tries to file, your application is ahead of theirs, right? So if they have a similar name or they have like the same name, your application is in line ahead of theirs. It's going to be theoretically viewed ahead of theirs. And you have options for kind of knocking their application out. So where can I go to get more information about trademark processes? You're here. So I shared a bunch of information. I'm also available. Again, we are a trademark law firm, and I'll share my information next. So let's go. We're just finishing up. So Q&A, we're going to turn to the Q&A section now. But before we do that, I just want to wrap up and say, take action now. So consider the different business entity types, incorporate your business so you can get that limited liability, take charge of your business name, set up a business bank account, act like a business, get your contracts and your written agreements, update your website with the required policies, get all your required licenses and permits. You don't want to be up and operating and making money, and then the state says, well, no, you need to shut it down because you didn't do X, Y, and Z, and you need to secure your files. So we'll take questions now. And then I also have 2 resources. So ways to work with me. I know I mentioned contracts. So I do have an online contract template shop. So you can go there if you needed an independent contractor agreement right now, hop on there, download it, affordable. Lawyers generally, they'll charge, $200 an hour to work or to draft a contract. So you're looking at a contract that might cost you a couple $1,000s. We're bypassing that by creating templates online that you can download, Fully included are instructions that tell you, what to put here, what to do here, how to sign it, and then you're good to go in probably 20 minutes or less. All the information I shared tonight, it's very quick. I know I spoke fast because I know we were time restraint, but I do also offer Smart DIY Legal Business Accelerator for business owners, where I help business owners for, we have online meetings, whatever questions you have. You also have full access to our entire library of contract templates. So if you need a service agreement, if you need an independent contractor agreement, you need your privacy policy, you need your terms of use, you have full access to all of that. We also have calls monthly where any questions you have about business legal items, you can either submit those questions ahead of time, or you can wait and hop on, ask the question, get your answer, and we can work out your unique questions. All of those things are included. And you get a year's worth of legal help and resources for what I think to be a nominal fee. You can also contact our website, and we will be glad to help you with your brand protection and trademark needs. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Toby. I know we may have some questions. I see at least one question maybe. So I'll take that, or if you have questions now that you want to share, I am here to answer.
Thank you so much, Kim. So much great information. I know I was writing down a lot here. So yeah, as you mentioned, we do have a few questions that have come in, and if you all have any questions that you think of as we're talking through these, please feel free to throw them in the chat, and we will try to get through as many as we can. So first question that came in is, what are some legal considerations that should be taken into account before deciding to bring on investors or even contractors?
Yes, so that's going to depend on a number of factors, unfortunately. One, what type of industry are you in? What is your product and or service? And do you have partners? Are they on board? One of the things that I did recommend earlier, though, that I would encourage is to have non-competes in place. You're going to be speaking with investors or partners or what have you, and they're going to have a lot of questions for you, and rightfully so, ahead of them making the decision to invest in you. So you want to make sure that those conversations are protected by a NDA, a confidentiality agreement, so that they don't then take it and they have all the information and they're like, well, I could just, I have another person who has or I have the money that you need, I could just do it myself. And usually there's a thought that people aren't going to throw away their baby to pick yours up, meaning if they have a business, they're not going to stop their business to take on your idea. But when you're dealing with investors, their entire model is to just throw money at things, right? I'm giving you money because I think it's a good idea. But if I already work with a similar company, maybe I can sprinkle in their ear that they should try doing this. And then, I don't have to invest in you because my money's already over here. So I would definitely, outside of, having, your presentation tight and being prepared for the questions, I'd at least want an NDA in place, and they shouldn't say no. And again, when you approach someone with a contract, if they're a business person, I generally say if they're against it, it's kind of a red flag, because why wouldn't you want, what we're saying memorialized? Why I'm telling you that I feel more secure in this business deal by having an NDA. Why is that a problem? Do you want to go talk to somebody about it after the fact? Because that's not what I want. So definitely at least an NDA or some type of agreement that includes a confidentiality clause so that your information is protected and you're not just telling everyone everything.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Another question that came in, how many countries should you file trademarks in? What licenses do you need to export materials into the US? And sounds like this might also be another, it depends, but any insight there?
And just about every country has its own trademark process and, entity that handles trademarks. There is an international trademark application that you can file, but I would say if you're here in the US, and I did mention this earlier, so thank you for triggering it. I would definitely file with the USPTO. There is broad and robust protection. And also, let's say you have a trademark for products. We see this a lot. And then for whatever reason, someone wants to knock you off and they, try to go to China and export, and create and purchase your exact knockoffs of whatever it is that you're making. When you have a federal trademark, what you can do is send that to the Port Authority and customs. And if customs engages a package that's a knockoff of yours, they'll just burn it. They'll just destroy it. So it'll never make its way into the US. So having a federal trademark is the only way to have customs do that work on your behalf. If you're just like, but it's mine, and you have no federal trademark, customs has no reason to do that work for you and to, you know, destroy that counterfeit and knockoff goods. So I would say definitely start with the US, especially if that's where you're operating, right? Because you're here. So you want to start that here, but there are parameters for filing, you know, an international application and other things. Trademarks are expensive. They are. So again, I would encourage you to start, I don't want to say start small, but get a handle of your operations here in the US and then branch out, because you also need money in order to pay your attorneys to do that for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Another question we had is, does a copyright help with proof of symbols if the symbol is already in use?
Does a copyright help with a proof of symbol if I don't know if that person's still here, but who's using the symbol? Like, are you using the symbol, or is this someone else's symbol that you're trying to copyright? I'll say this, again, when you file a copyright, you have an automatic copyright once you do something in writing. So if you're thinking of a symbol, you reduce it to writing, you're now using it on social media, that's good. However, it's encouraged to file it, because let's say your social media gets taken down, right? You can't now say a couple of years later, well, no, I've been using this since 2012. You don't have access to your social media anymore. How are you going to prove that? When you file something with you file a proper copyright application, that record is with the government. You can just ask them to send you, your certificate again, and then shut down someone who may be using your symbol. So if I'm understanding that question, I think that's the best way I can answer it.
Yeah, and I think that does answer. They clarified it's like their own symbol. Awesome. And I think we have time for one more question. So if one person asked, if their business is established in Europe, but also sells some of the products and creates profit in the US, do they need to look into creating a new or separate LLC for the US market?
That is a great question. With that limited information that I have, I would encourage you to file. Well, I would have a question first. Where are you based? Like, if you are a citizen of the EU and you work and operate and your operations are in, Europe, but you just happen to also sell goods here via the internet, or maybe you ship here, then I'd say it depends. Like, I need more information. I want to know, are you coming here to the US and like conducting meetings, and do you have a manufacturer here? Like, do you do enough in the US to where it would make sense and legally you want to say, all right, let me make sure I'm protected? Or is it just like an offshoot? Like, you sell one product in the US via the internet, and now you're like, crap, do I need to create an LLC? In that case, maybe not, but I would need more information. But I don't want to leave you with just that. I'd say audit your operations. You operate primarily in the EU. Everything you do is in Europe, but you just happen to also sell some goods, like maybe 5 goods a year in the US, maybe not. If you do more significant operations in the US, like you come here, you have business partners here, you have a headquarters here, you have an office space here, then yeah, I think you're getting into territory where you want to set up and say, hey, I can do business in the US, because if I get sued in the US, like, I have an entity behind me, I have the appropriate limited liability or the appropriate insurance, et cetera, behind me. I hope that answered your question.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we are at time. I know there were a couple more questions in the chat. So you can see Kim is so gracious in kind of sharing her contact information and like her resources. So I definitely encourage you to leverage those if you have more questions and want to engage with her some more in those resources. Kim, thank you so much for your time. I know I learned a lot, especially as a new kind of business owner and innovator. So I'm sure everyone else did as well. And with that, this is the end of the session. I hope you all have a great rest of your night.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.